Here's a question for you. Was this justified? Welcome back everyone, David Heineman here from Stay Safe Martial Arts, and if you're new to this channel, we are all about self-defense tips, techniques, and fight breakdowns. Now for today's fight breakdown, we have two individuals on what appears to be a subway in which one individual starts pulling out what turns out to be child scissors, and the other individual, which I'm guessing he was trying to stab or cut with the said scissors, decides to punch the scissor man in the face a couple times, knocking him out cold. And the question of the day is, was this justified? Now, a few things as we kind of dive into this video to begin with, right? What makes it justifiable for you to throw essentially the first punch in a fight, which is a good option, may I say, especially if we're talking from like a self-defense perspective, right? It is good sometimes to throw the first punch rather than be on the receiving end, because let's be honest, reactions are always going to be slower than actions. And the last thing that you want to be reacting to is somebody pulling out a sharp object, or somewhat sharp if we're talking about child scissors, and you are now trying to react to somebody potentially trying to stab you, right? I would rather be on the acting end. I'd rather throw the first punch, which is exactly what this guy did. Now, I'm going to be blunt and just straight up front with you all. I believe it was. I believe it was 100% justified. We're going to talk about why. I just want people to understand that it's okay to throw the first punch. A lot of times when I say that, especially in self-defense seminars or classes, people are always like, oh, well, you're going to get in trouble for that. Yes, you can if you don't really understand the signs and things to look for that would justify you throwing the first punch. So let's break this down. For starters, the ability to run away or walk away, which when I posted this video on my social media, everybody was saying, oh, well, he should just move. He should just get out of the situation. He should just remove himself from there. Well, it appears that he's on public transportation. More specifically, it looks like he's on a subway of some sort. So obviously he's not able to just get up and walk off the subway. But more importantly, he's also not able to necessarily just move seats. We don't know what the rest of the train looks like. So he can't just simply walk to another seat per se. And there's no telling that if this guy does get up and start moving to another seat, that the individual with the scissors wouldn't just follow him to begin with. So moving or running away, not an option. Number two, de-escalation. Now, he does in this video attempt to de-escalate this situation to some extent. I will be honest with you, it's a shitty attempt at de-escalating the situation. That being said, even if it was a legitimate way of de-escalating, the man with the scissors appears to be under the influence of something, whether it's drugs, alcohol. He does not seem to be fully coherent with what is going on. So in my opinion, de-escalation probably would not have worked to begin with. So there you have two things right now. You couldn't have de-escalated the situation, and you can't remove yourself from the situation, which means you are forced to handle what happens, right? Which in this case is somebody pulling out an edged weapon, or you start to kind of reconsider whether or not you take action, which is exactly what this guy did. Now you'll notice as this video starts that the man holding the paper, as the gentleman starts to kind of stand up and assert his dominance, right? He kind of gives him like the, what up? What are you gonna do? And starts puffing out his chest, and that's where the shit talking, I guess, starts. Again, I'm assuming something probably happened before, which is what incited the person to start recording to begin with. But clearly the man in the baseball cap is starting to acknowledge that something is not right. And therefore, the papers that are in his hand, he starts to kind of fold up and put the folder away in his pockets. But one thing that he does a nice job of this entire process, which is something that everybody should be doing if you're in a altercation of some sort or a verbal altercation, is look at his eyes. He's constantly watching this guy. He never takes his eyes off the man, which too often do we see people that are in verbal altercations will either look away or they turn and walk away, exposing their back, and what do you know, they get sucker punched. So if you find yourself in a verbal altercation, never remove your eyes from the person to begin with, because again, you're gonna be on the receiving end, and that's not somewhere you wanna be. Now, right here is where we have one of our big first signs of that there is a potential weapon about to come into play, and that is picking. Now, in general, when we talk about like sucker punches, picking happens to be one of the cues that you want to pay attention for. What is picking exactly? Could be kind of ruffling through your pockets of a hoodie or jacket, could be kind of having a hand underneath, you know, like if I just stand here, if I kind of got like a hand here and I'm just kind of just playing around with my pockets or fiddling around as if I had a weapon in my waistband. It's just something that's kind of giving off a sign like you're kind of holding on to a weapon or you're about to grab a weapon, which in this case, he's got both hands digging in his pockets right here, looking for something. Now, if we fast forward the video just a few seconds, you'll realize that, okay, he's got it in his right pocket because now this hand aggressively goes deeper into the pocket. He completely removes his left hand, which means that now he's aggressively digging for something. Now, the man seated with the baseball cap has now fully acknowledged that things are not going well. The de-escalation isn't working, he can't move, and now I think he's kind of started to go under the impression that he's going to be forced to engage. So what does he end up doing? He ends up kind of standing up and better positioning himself. Now, whether or not this man has had training of any sort, he handles the situation extremely well. Maybe he's just been around the block a few times and he's been in situations like this. But if we backtrack this just a split second, notice that as he stands up, he doesn't just kind of stand up. He stands up and completely puts himself in front of the man with the scissors. Now, what does this mean exactly, right? He has now given himself multiple routes of exit. He has given himself space to work, and he has completely cut off the man with the scissors movements altogether, right? The man has nowhere to go unless he can get past this gentleman with the baseball cap. And not only that, his back is now up against a wall, or in this case, I guess a subway seat. And essentially, he's just stuck in place now. He's got nowhere else to go. So now the guy with the baseball cap has just pretty much put himself in a prime position that if he does decide to throw the first punch, he can do so, and he can easily exit from the situation as quickly as possible. It gets cut off here, obviously, because the guy from that's videotaping this doesn't think about trying to move and, get all the angles. Clearly, he's not a videographer. But what you'll see right away is right here, two things. Number one, the man has already drawn the scissors. Scissors are completely out of the pocket. Again, they are child scissors. It doesn't matter. You can still do damage with those. But another thing I want you to kind of take note, if we just slowly fast forward with this, is you will notice that the man with the baseball cap, his left hand is completely posted on the guy's arm. Now, if we're talking about justifying when to throw the first punch, I honestly probably would have already punched the dude way before this guy has. I probably would have stood up, presented myself, stood my ground, and if the guy is still insistent on digging into his pocket, I probably would have just punched him right then and there without even letting him pull whatever it is out of his pocket, or taking it one step further, I would have posted one hand onto his hand that's digging into his pocket, and as I hold that hand there, I just kind of start punching him with the other hand until I can either knock him out or just prevent him from drawing altogether. But not in this case. The guy does end up drawing scissors, but again, got the baseball cap, pins the arm to the body. Now, he still does not throw the punch here. He holds the hand there. He gets his right hand ready to go. So if you pay attention, nice and close here, not only does he have the arm pinned, he's got his other hand here already in a fist ready to throw that first punch. But he does not throw it yet. He still manages to stay calm until the guy decides to switch hands. Now, for starters, this is an awesome thing to see in real life situations because you very rarely see hand switches, especially when it comes to weapons. And a lot of people who are just kind of like the keyboard warriors and don't actually physically train will always yell out when we post videos of weapon training like, oh, I would just switch hands to do this. It's not a very common thing. This is one of those few rare circumstances that we actually get to kind of see it live. Now, once the guy starts kind of switching hands, so you'll see right here, he's literally putting it into his left hand. This is now the point where the man with the baseball cap decides, okay, he is still attempting to try and cut me or stab me or do some form of damage with these scissors no matter what I do to try and stop it. I've got no choice. And what do you think happens next? Yep, exactly. He's going to throw two punches and end the situation right there. Now, in addition to him throwing the punches, not only was it a good way to, again, kind of handle the situation as a whole, but he also does a nice job of not kind of taking it a step further. He throws the punches once the threat is completely nullified, which in this case is the man being knocked out on cold. He completely stops what he's doing, he backs off, and he doesn't proceed to go further, which is what you often see in videos where people get knocked out and then they just get on top of them and start pounding their head into the concrete or stomping on them, or their friends jump in. So he did a nice job of just doing the damage to end the threat and back off altogether. So this video was a prime example. Once people actually started analyzing and paying attention to all the little details, this is a prime example of just how making the first move, which in this case is throwing the first punch, is justifiable and also a good option in most self-defense encounters. Again, you don't want to be on the receiving end. If you sense that something's off, if the body language is telling you that something is off, make a move. Do something to stay one step ahead of your attacker and to potentially save yourself from getting knocked out, stabbed, shot, beat up by multiple individuals, and ultimately allowing you to get out of the situation altogether. And even if a person's verbal, whatever it is that they're saying, if they're not saying anything that sounds like they're going to do something, pay attention to the body language, because the body language isn't going to lie. I can spew whatever it is that I want. I can lie to your face, but my body language is going to tell you exactly what my intentions were, which is exactly what happened in this case. Now, clearly, again, the guy actually was being verbal. As we said at the beginning, he was running his mouth a little bit. He was under the influence, so trying to de-escalate or just talk him out of the situation clearly was not working. There was no space for this man to move, so what does he do? He gets up, he positions himself in a better spot. Once the guy does draw the weapon, he posts the arm to the body to prevent him from being able to use the weapon. However, once the guy decides to switch hands with the scissors, man with the baseball cap had no other choice but to throw the first couple punches and again end the situation altogether right there. So for those of you out there that are not thinking that this is justified, I will ask you this: why would you want to wait until somebody is now actively trying to stab you rather than just throwing the punch first and keeping yourself alive and ultimately safe? Give that a thought. Stay safe.